Hello students, today we are going to discuss history of English language. How English language is developed, what history says, how many stages English has crossed, we are going to discuss. So as per the text, as one would expect, the English language came from England. Experts believe the language originated from nomads, people who travel from a place to place without any specific home. These nomads are believed to have traveled among the European plains about 5000 years ago. So, according to common people, we expect that English has come from England, but believe that experts believe that it has originated from nomads. Nomad played very important role in English expansion or in English development of English. And nomads, we know that they don't have any home. They move from one place to another, are called nomads. So they have traveled amongst the European plains about 500 years ago, and then English was started. So that some experts say that English is developed by nomads. However, one general opinion is that it has come from England. So that is there now. Now, what's the history? Text says that according to history, the history of English language really started with the arrival of Germanic tribe. Very important. Here, from here we get the proof actually, and no, we get what we can say that record from year is not given here, but I would like to tell you that it was the 450 to 1100, right? So 650 years, that's the first phase. English actually, the development of English is divided, or history of English, development of English is divided into three parts: Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. So that's how it was started. So record says that first it was started with the arrival of Germanic tribes. Germanic tribes came, they invaded Britain, right? During the 5th century or 450 AD. These tribes who were they? Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. These were the three tribes who invaded Britain, and they came from North Sea. From what today? That is Denmark. North Sea, that is Denmark, and northern Germany. Denmark and northern Germany is the North Sea. At that time, the inhabitants of Britain spoke Celtic. So local people, they used to speak Celtic. They used to speak Celtic, but most of the Celtic speakers were pushed west and north by the invaders. So what happened? Celtic speakers were pushed away by these attackers, by these Germanic tribes, Angel, Saxon, and Jutes. They pushed away local people, localite, and then they settle in the Britain. So all invaders mainly into what is now Wales. So what? But most of the Celtic speakers were pushed west and north by the invaders here, and mainly into what is now Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Right? Ireland. The angels came from England. It is these were very powerful people. So they came from England, right? And their language was called English, right? From which the words England, land England became England, and language English become English are derived. So England is derived from England, and English is derived from English, right? So I'm explaining in next page. Here we can understand this way. That's a was the history that first Germanic tribes, Germanic tribes, right? Germanic tribes, who are they? They were Germanic tribes were angels, angels, Saxons, and Jutes. They attacked to Britain, invaded, invaded into Britain, right? Now, Britain, in Britain, they used to speak Celtic, right? But Celtic speakers were pushed away to west and east. We can say that there's a Kashmiri Pandit. Now Kashmiri Pandit, many Kashmiri Pandit were pushed away by local people, we can say, or terrorists, whomsoever, and then they settle here in like north, like south, here and there. Similarly, three uh, three invaders or Germanic tribes came to invaded to Britain, and who were they? Angles, Saxons, and Jutes. They attacked on Britain, and at that time, inhabitants of Britain, they used to speak Celtic, so they were pushed away by these tribes. So they have to settle in west and east. At present, which is now that is called West Wales, Scott, and Ireland. So that Celtic speakers settle in Wales, Scott. Celtic peoples settle in Wales, Scotland. Sorry, Celtic people, Celtic speakers settle. They settled when they pushed away. So they settle in Wales, Scotland, and one more place, that is Ireland, right? So they these were the three places where Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Here Celtic speakers were settled. Now what happened? They came from, that was angels came from England, and then their language was English. That is also important. How English, so then angels came from England, and their language was English. So England become England. Sorry, England become England, and that language became English. So these words derived from English is derived from English, and England is derived from England, right? So that is there. Now here in this map we can see that what was the place. Germanic invaders entered Britain, right, on 5th century. So that was the North Sea and Germanic invasions of 5th century. Here they attacked in Britain here, and that is Wales, England and Scotland, right? That is Ireland, right? So here they attacked, and local people of Britain, they settled Wales, Ireland and England. Scotland. Here, who were settled? Local Britain people. And again, um, who were the invaders? Angles, Saxon and Jute. They all invaded to Britain. They came from North Sea, right? And Britain people used to speak Celt. Sorry. Britain people used to speak Celt, right? Here I'm writing here. They used to speak Celt. Who? Britain people. But they were pushed away to west and east. So places are Wales, Ireland and Scotland. So this is the first phase, right? Okay. So this is the first phase. Now moving to next part. That's again I'm repeating summary how record says that Germanic tribes, who were they? Angles, Saxons and Jutes. Angles, Saxons and Jutes. They came, they attacked or they invaded Britain, and they came from North Sea and attacked on Britain, and when they came here, so angels were very much powerful. They came together, who? Three tribes: angels, Saxons and Jutes. They came and they attacked, they invaded to Britain. Inhabitants of Britain or natives of Britain, they used to speak Celtic. So these tribes were very powerful, and then they ruled for 650 years. They came by 450 AD and then left by 1100 AD. So then they ruled there for a long time, and then out of three, angels, Saxon and Jutes, angels were more powerful. So history says that they came from the place England, and their language was English. So English is derived from England, and English is derived from English. So this is the first phase. When they all these three Germanic tribes invaded Britain, so Celtic speakers, means Britain inhabitants, when they were there during attack invasion of these tribes, they speak a Celtic, and all Celtic speakers were pushed away by these tribes, and then Celtic speakers have to go to west and east, west and probably north, I'm not sure. Let me see. That's a, wait a minute. That's a, they no, sorry, west and north. So then they settle in west and north, and these are the places where Celtic speakers settle. That is Wales, Scotland and Ireland, right? So this is introduction of the history of uh, English, development of English, right? Now, what is Old English and what's the period of Old English? How Old English is spoken by people? That's the time 450 AD to 1100 AD. That period is called old history, old English. The invading Germanic tribes spoke similar language, right? So, who are the Germanic tribes? Angels. Wait a minute. Who were they? Just recall. Angels, Saxons, and Jute. They spoke similar languages, which in Britain developed into what we call now Old English. So these all three tribes developed language which is called Old English. Old English did not sound or look like English today. However, it was the base. Old English, New English is made with the help of Old English. The base of modern English is Old English, but this is also fact. Interesting fact is that Old English did not sound or look like new modern English, right? Native English speakers now would have great difficulty understanding Old English because they will not be able to understand, because the form of English is, we can say that, drastically changed. Totally change we cannot say, but drastically change. So current modern English speakers are not able to speak, they would not understand even Old English, right? We will see in next slide, we are going to see the sample what was the Old English. So that is also interesting fact of language, English language, that Old English cannot be understood by modern speakers or current speakers of Britain. But one another fact is also there, that is, nevertheless, about half of the commonly use words in modern English. Very interesting fact. What's the fact that half of the modern half of the most commonly used words in modern English have Old English roots. That is also very important and interesting fact, that half of the commonly used words in modern English means at present what English is spoken, the half of the words have been taken from Old English, right? So we find the root of Old English in modern English, actually, because Old English is the root, Old English is the base of modern English, and that's why half of the, in other words, we can say they say that half of the English is Old English. But this is also fact that modern speakers cannot understand Old English. And common words which are still in use, these are the words, that's a be, strong, water. They, such words have come from Old English, right? And what was the last year of like this English, that is 1100 AD. So Old English was spoken up to 1100 AD, means this is the duration, like 650 years, right? 650 years it was the time of Old English. So here what did we get? We get that this is the Old English. This is a sample of Old English. Beowulf. Beowulf was the epic poem, very long poem, right? Beowulf. And Beowulf is this poetry is written in Old English, which is not legible. We cannot able to read it. That was the Old English, right? However, again, one interesting fact that many words have been taken from Old English. Half of the words in modern English we use from Old English, but then Old English is not legible to us. Okay, so let us revise it. That is, here we can see that the fact is that Old English, the period of Old English was 450 to 1100 AD. And when Germanic tribes came, so they, Angels, Saxon and Jutes, they spoke common or similar English, and that's why they have developed one common English, which was known as Old English. And but fact is that modern English speakers cannot understand Old English. Nevertheless, half of the words in of modern English, we find the root of Old English language in modern English, right? So that is also fact. Many words, half of the words are used in modern English from Old English. Be, strong water, these are the words still. Once upon a time in Old English speaker, they use be, strong, water. Still in modern English, we use such words. This is the fact. So let me revise. Germanic tribe came from North Sea. Germanic tribes, angels, Saxons, and Jutes came from North Sea, and they attacked or invaded Britain. At that time, inhabitants of Britain used they spoke Celtic, but then Celtic speakers were thrown away or pushed away by these Germanic tribes, and angels, and then they spoke common language, similar language, not common language, similar language, uh, languages who that's angels, Saxon, and Jews. They spoke similar languages, and that's why, with mutual understanding, they developed one common language, which was known as Old English. And then we, in next slide, we got to know that the the period of Old English is from 450 AD to 1100, means 650 years. This Old English was spoken. And fact is that in modern English we find the roots of old English in modern English. But this is also an interesting fact that modern English speaker cannot understand Old English. So that is, till now we have understood, we have seen the sample also, right? Now, next phase was modern English. And modern English, that was the duration of modern English is 1100 to 1500, 1200, 1400, 1500, short time, right? So that's the fact that 1100 to 1500 means 300 years this middle language was used, right? Now, how Old English was stopped, and how English is formed into English, is formed, and how English was known, Old English, or we can say that how Middle English came into existence. So definitely there was some reasons, and one of the reasons, very important reasons was uh, the like 650 years native of Britain, they started speaking Old English, English of tribes, we can say, language of tribes. So they started because Celtic people they shifted somewhere. So then these people started speaking Old English, and then in 1100, what happened in the year 1100 AD? So that's a change, is that in 1066 or 1066, william the conqueror William the Conqueror, who was he? The Duke of Normandy. So this is Duke of Normandy. Right now it's a modern France, or we can say that in 10th century, or in 1066, William the Conqueror, who was the Duke of Normandy, right now it is, or we can say Duke of modern France. He came and he invaded and conquered England. So, who were ruling that at that time? These Anglo-Saxon Norman and Jutes. Sorry, Anglo-Saxon and Jutes. They were uh, they were ruling there, and then William the Conqueror, he was the Duke of Normandy or Duke of modern France. Right now it is modern France. So then they were ruling, but who attacked then? Then in 1066, one more invader came with his army, and they were known as Normans. So the new conqueror were known as Normans, and definitely when they started ruling here, then they brought a, a language, they brought new language with them, and that is, what was it? That was French, kind of French, not exactly French, which became the language of royal court, because they have come from modern France, we can say. Who? William the Conqueror. So then they brought kind of the language which is mostly like that was French language, not exactly French but French language, which became the language of now. When they brought French language and they were ruling, so they were powerful at that time. So definitely the society was divided into two: lower class and higher class. Now, again, language is also that higher class or elite class, they started speaking French because they were ruling. So that definitely they were powerful and they brought that language, and that's why they were society was divided into two, and then higher class and lower class or middle class. So then French became the language of royal court, ruling, and business classes. Means for elite class, French was spoken by them. And for a period, there was a kind of linguistic class division. For a period, not for a long time, but for a period, there was a kind of linguistic class division. So then, on the basis of language, society was divided, where the lower classes spoke English. So English was the language of lower class and French was for upper class. So that is for upper class, that was the French. But it was very short duration. Then in the sorry then in the 14th century, English became dominant in Britain again. For a while, French became the language of royal court, business, and ruling class, but for very short period. But then in 14th century, English became powerful. It became dominant in Britain again. But natural, it's a very natural process, because people in local like in common people's tongue, that's a French. For example, now, right now this time is global village, and then mobile is in our hand, and we listen many things on daily basis, and that's why knowingly or unknowingly we speak many words. So might be a word is French or German or Spanish, so we adopt, and then in our tongue that word is somewhat word is fit, and then it becomes common. So that's a the more exposure, than the more expansion of any language. And it happens why? Because when they brought invaders William the Conquerors brought French with him, and then they ruled for 300 years. So then the influence they influenced the society, and then on the basis of linguistics, there was linguistic class division. Society was divided on the basis of language. Upper class people, they speak French, and lower class English. But very soon in 14th century, English became powerful language. It became dominant in Britain again. But this time English came back with new form. That is because some French words added. This language is called, and that is why, because some French words added, and that is why this language is called Middle English. It was the language of great poet Chaucer. Middle English is also known as the language of Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer. His duration was 1340 to 400. And Middle English is known for Geoffrey Chaucer. Who was Geoffrey Chaucer? He was the uh, he was the father of modern English, father of English literature, and he he is very famous for his famous work Prologue of Canterbury Tales or Canterbury Tales. He he wrote 124 Canterbury Tales. Hundreds are still illegible, but 24 are somewhat legible. So that is why when 14th century, when Geoffrey Chaucer was born in 1340, then Middle English, he used Middle English frequently in his texts, and that text was very famous, still famous, and he used many words, new words, and that is why he is known as father of modern English, right? So that was there. Now, but it would still be difficult for native English speakers to understand today. That not modern, Middle English. So Middle English again is Middle English is not modern English speakers are not comfortable, not much comfortable with Middle English, and that's why Canterbury Tales, all 124 tales are not interpreted. Reason is that 100 are the words in 100 are still illegible, because the words are used in that particular text are not legible, right? So this is the problem for modern English speakers also, that Middle English is not their cup of tea. They cannot understand words and grammar of Middle English, right? So what did we learn? That's the Middle English. William the Conqueror, who was the Duke of Normandy, Duke of modern France, we can say, invaded and conquered England, and he had won England. Definitely, he had pushed away tribes. So some of the tribes might, because they rule for long time, that's why they settle. But then, who overpowered the England? That's a William the Conqueror. So they start ruling, and then they uh, brought what kind of French with them, and then on the basis of linguistic or language, society was divided into two class. Upper class speak French, lower class they used to speak English, but it was very short duration. Then English in 14th century, English came back into existence, but this time it came with the new form that was known as Middle English, because many French words were added into English. So that's why it was known as Middle English. Here one more noticeable thing was happened, that Geoffrey Chaucer was born, and he had written many works and many famous work, and one of the works is Canterbury Tales. So that's why this year is very famous. And Middle English, English, that was the language of Chaucer. Chaucer has used frequently, and Chaucer has used Middle English in his texts. So that's a, in short, we can say that what happened. That's the first period. Then 450 to 1100. It was 1100. Sorry, 450 to 1100 was the time. It was Old English. Right? Then 1100, who invaded England? That is William the Conqueror. Right? William the Conqueror. And who was the William the Conqueror? William the Conqueror. He was the Duke of Normandy. It was the old name, which is modern French. So he was the Duke of modern French. So when he invaded England, and then when he invaded when William invaded England, so he brought one language that was similar. That was who? William. When William the Conqueror invaded England, so he brought language that was similar to French, right? And then he ruled there for 300 years, right? So these people ruled there for 300 years. And then because of this language, that they brought French with them, because they came from modern France. Old name was Denmark. So when they came from modern France, so they brought modern. So now that Middle English, now that Old English, then Old English was mixed with French words. And in between what happened? Then society is divided into two classes. That's a elite class or higher class, and that's a second one is lower or middle class, right? So higher class, they used to speak French. Means French was the language of elite class, and lower class, they speak English. In other words, we can say that language, because of language, that's a royal court. French became the language of royal court, business, right, and ruling people or party. And English for middle class. Middle class. So this way society was divided into two. But one more very big sea change came. That's a birth of Geoffrey Chaucer. Geoffrey Chaucer was born, and his duration was 1340 to 1400. 60 years, right? 1400 century, 60 years. And then he has written, he used Middle English, and he has written many works. Middle English, and he has written many works, and one of the works is, that's the Canterbury Tales. And how many tales were there? 124. But 24 are legible and 100 are still illegible. But because of this, and then one more fact, that class was divided of on the basis of linguistic or language. Society was divided into two parts. So that's French English. French English or modern English. French was used by royal court and business and ruling class, and then when it was the very short time, but very soon in 14th century English came back. But this time when English in 14th century English came back, है ना, and that was the language of elite and everyone. But this time English became more middle English. Middle English. Why Middle English? It was the Old English. This is Middle English because here many French words were added in this English, and that's why Old English became Middle English. Right? So that is the fact. So moving ahead, this is the sample of Middle English. Example of Middle English by Chaucer. This is the Chaucer's work. Geoffrey Chaucer's. So we can see it, we can read, but many words are not readable. What is and when? Spelling of when? One, I. This is saw actually. He. This word is not used, right? Never find. Okay. Then 3 leaves have I plight. I with my fist. So look him on the cheek. Cheek is wrong, right? And then this word is not wrong, not used, right? Some of the words end with his fist is not used. First might be, right? I were. Okay. And then this is new old word. This is old word. Have is common. So this is the sample of Middle English was used by Geoffrey Chaucer. Because text, if someone writes something, that will be the part of history, and because of language, because of some product, some work, we will be able to interpret it. Our next generation, coming generation, how they will come to know about us through now. Time has changed, a technical time, right? Technical era, and that is why videos, reels and everything is available. But if I talk my generation or my father's generation, then before this, how, because camera came, so some of the photos were there, but before that, when camera was not invented, words only, words, they were only words. By words or by text, we will be able to understand about the past. So that texts are very helpful. Works, poem and prose or whatever is written, that became the part of history. And because of this text, we we can imagine about the old society, or we gain knowledge of the past, right? So language or works are very important to know about anything, right? Okay. Now that's the last phase, that is modern English, right? This is the modern English. So so modern English is divided into two classes. That is early modern English, which was the time 1500 to 1800 century, right? 1500 century to 1800 century. That was early modern English. So modern English is also divided into two class. Now further it may be divided to three class, because modern, then postmodern, then postmodern, because of technology, because of so many new words every day we use. And that's why language is not fixed. It is said that language is matter of flux. Language keeps on changing every day. Language changes its form, but it's not noticeable. But language changes, definitely language changes daily, right? So that is, so what is early modern English? Early modern English is towards the end of Middle English. End of Middle English is 1500. So that's the end of Middle English. A sudden and distinct change. Now what's the change here? There, for Old English, Germanic tribes came. For Middle English, William the Conqueror came and invaded to Britain and conquered. Now in modern English, what happened? So that is sudden and distinct change in pronunciation. All of a sudden, uh, people started speaking in different way. And what is the major change? Very important, great vowel shift. Started with vowel being pronounced shorter and shorter. So then all of a sudden this change took place, and they started they started um, speaking in the new way, that then they use vowel, very short vowel actually. This is called long vowel. In phonetics we have read, and this is short vowel. This is छोटी की मात्रा, this is बड़ी की मात्रा. All double dot is long vowel. This is long vowel. This is long vowel, right? This is short vowel. This is short vowel. So that they started. So what was the breakthrough? That sudden and distinct change in pronunciation, and that was great vowel shift. The vowel being pronounced shorter and shorter. Very important. What? The vowels being pronounced shorter and shorter. From the 16th century, the British had, so this was the first reason. Then from the 16th century, here we can 16th century, we can say plus 100 years, right? 16th century, the British had contact with many peoples from around the world. Why? Because of globalization, we can say, because of industrialization, Renaissance, very big change because of industrialization. So next, that is, they contacted with many people, and then this and the Renaissance of classical learning. Renaissance means industrialization everywhere, in every direction changes were being took place. And then Renaissance of classical learning, that was the reason. Renaissance of classical learning means that many new words, classical learning means many new words and phrases entered the language. The invention of and that was the very big change, Renaissance of classic learning. And the most important change is invention of printing press. Also meant that there was now a common language in print, because it was manual. Once upon a time everything was manual. Tamrapatra, in Hindi we have got manuscript in Tamrapatra. But then machine came, machine for drafting, that's a printing machine. And once printing machine came into existence, invented, then language became common to all, because manual is different. But then number of printout were taken for common people. And then books became cheaper naturally. Now I let me tell you one example. I'm the witness. Then I have seen then our servants means servants or poor class people, they were not able to afford chappal, And then it was the time, I am the witness, I have seen that they used to wear rubber chappal, and it was very tear chappal they used to uh, until unless it is not in two pieces, they used to wear, right? That was the time, because of living standard is changed drastically. Even in some dwellers we can see that they have everything, almost every device, laptop, phone, TV, all gadgets are there, right? So then it's unbelievable that there was the time then people were not able to afford sleepers and all. But then that's why we have to believe. But then printing press came into existence, different machines came into existence. That's why books were cheaper, right? It became cheaper, and it was reachable to every common people's hand, right? So that is also very big change. Books became cheaper and more people learned to read, and as books were in their hands, so they were able to read, because uh, they are learned now. So printing press also brought standardization. Another change is what? That's a standardization to English. Spelling and grammar became fixed. What happened then? I gave example. When we start something, suppose one new institution is started, MBA college, or any college, professional college, or any college, any school. So in the beginning, for some time, it goes with trial and error. Then gradually they start with trial and error. They they uh, it came like rules, guidelines, and everything uh, uh, comes in a shape, because what mistake they do, so next time they avoid. But some new mistakes happen, and this way gradually, then then a time come, then they understood, and then they make one system in every organization, whether it's private or government. Then some good schools, good colleges, good organizations. So because why they are good? Because of their organized system. Similarly, it was the phase that language was being developed. But as Renaissance or industrialization was there, printing press and other many breakthrough, many changes came in our life, and then books became cheaper, and it was in common people's hand and everything. And what happened then? Gradually, standardization of English, like there was spellings and grammar was fixed, because it was the trial and error phase. So sometimes some is speaking something. I would like to give you example. When we take attendance, we used to take attendance, so then our format was different. When we have to submit the detail of anything, so that format was different, because whatever my knowledge, accordingly I submit the format. But now gradually we have fixed the format, that in this format we have to submit attendance, in this format we have to submit the other details. So that's the standardization, because now it's fixed, everything that is fixed. Similarly, it was the time then language, English language was struggling, or we can say that it was being formed. But now uh, when it became common and then everyone speaking, then there was standardization. Now, so that spelling and grammar became fixed, and the dialect of London, where most publishing houses were, became the standard. And even dialect of London, it was also fixed. Dialect is which is the language which is spoken in a community, one community. That's Malvi, that is the dialect of Indore. And this way, so dialect is the language which is spoken in a community is called dialect. So that's a most publishing houses were became the standard. And then in 1604 the first English dictionary was published. In 1604 first dictionary was published, right? So what's the early modern phase, early modern English? It was the 300 years, right? 300 years. And then distinct the sudden what the change, why middle English change into modern English, what was the reason? So that is sudden and distinct change of pronunciation, great vowel shift. Because earlier people speak from back part of mouth, but now they started speaking from the front part of mouth because of again even mobile change had changed our language, our attitudes, our thinking process. So these inanimated things uh, also influence our life, biological life and physical life, everything. That is not, sometimes that is not noticeable, but that changes occur in our life also, in our body, in our thinking process, everywhere. So that is there now. So what we have seen that how middle English became modern or early modern, right? Early modern, that is middle English, middle English from modern English, and that was the modern English. The modern English phases, that is 1500 century to 1800 century, right? That's a 300 years period is called early modern English, right? Now what's the change of, that is important thing is that the what's the change, great vowel shift. That's the very big change, great vowel shift, right? So great vowel shift, this was the very important reason of that language is become modern English. What the great vowel shift? Because they use shorter and shorter vowels, right? Very shorter vowels they use. This was the change. Then second change, so that first change is that is great shift of vowel, है ना, great vowel shift. So first change is that what the great vowel shift. Second change is that's the renaissance, right? Third great change is that's a printing press, right? And because of printing press, books become cheaper and in everyone's hand, right? And fourth change is that is what's the change? Fourth change is standardization. Yes. So fourth change is that is fourth one is standardization. Standardization, standardization, and then spellings, or grammar became fixed. Somewhat it was fixed, however not 100% fixed, but fixed. So this is early modern English. Now next is, this is early modern English, right? That is 16th century. Because let me recall you, that's a 16th century. What they say that in 16th century, that was the very important part of 16th century is that British had contact with many people. This is the biggest change. And then in 1604 first English dictionary was published in 1604, right? So these are the changes. Now this is 16th century. Shakespeare was born, and then Shakespeare had written 37 plays, right? In 37 plays, one of the world famous play is Hamlet. So here we can understand early modern English, because in early modern English, Shakespeare has written all 37 novels were written in early modern English, and that is one of the examples is Hamlet, which was written by Shakespeare. And then let us try to understand what Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. This was the full name of the play. So here we would try to understand early modern English, right? What is early modern English? That's a this word is not legible to us, but then other words, nay is no, right? Then answer spelling is different. This word is different, this word is different, right? But you come, this word is carefully upon this. So some of the words, this is 16th century or modern early modern English, but then many words are not legible to us because it's old English or archaic words. In grammar you must have you must have read, that's a called archaic archaic or old fashioned words. Old fashioned words. What are old fashioned words? Example is thou, thee, right? Thou is you, thee is now, your, right? Doth is does. This is 16, this is middle modern, early modern English, right? Okay, now last part of history of English literature is late modern English, 18th century to till date. That is late modern English. So right now what English we speak, that is late modern English. Why early modern? What's the change took place in early modern English? So let us see. The main difference between early modern English and late modern English is vocabulary. Late modern English has many more words arising from two principal factors. What the principal factors? Firstly, the industrial revolution. Every day, new industry, new and technology. And because of industrial revolution and technology, many vocabulary every day. Dictionary is being enriched with new words, right? So that is created a need for new words, because if technology comes, that that I would like to tell you that Sunita Williams, she and Butch Wilmore, two scientists, they are they are still in space. They went for 8 days in the month of June, but still they are stuck in space. They are not able to come. So that because of technology, we get information day by day, updates we get, and then we got to know about space, information, detailed information about space. So then terminology, new words we learn, that's a jargon, that's a use words or technical words which are used for space, technical words which are used for one different kind of software or different kind of machines. So that very expansion of vocabulary, right? So this was the reason, what the early modern English and late modern English vocabulary was the prime reason. Why? Because of two things: industrial revolution and technology, right? So that's a created a need for new words. Secondly, it was the first reason. Second is British Empire, as its height covered the 1/4 of earth. So they have covered 1/4 of earth. ये पूरा part was covered by them, right? Earth surface. And the English language adopted foreign, and that's why they colonies were being made, and then English language adopted for, so then suppose they invaded to India and then they ruled for 200 years, so they must have taken some words, Malvi words, Rajasthani words like Lucknowi and all. So they have adopted some new words from many countries because they made colonies in, and one fourth of the earth is a very biggest part which was occupied by Britishers. So this was there. So that's in modern English what the let me revise. That's the basic difference between early modern English and late modern English is vocabulary, because of two reasons. That's the industrial revolution and technology, and then second reason is British Empire at its height covered 1/4 of the earth's surface. So they covered 1/4 of the earth. That was the reason, and that's why they have picked up many words from many other countries. So that's the late English. So very important, what's the late modern English? First reason was late modern English and early modern English is vocabulary. Why? Because of industrial industrial establishment, or because of in the industries. And number two is technology. It needs new words, right? And then number two is British Empire. British Empire, because they covered 1/4 of Earth's surface. Earth's surface, right? And it's a very big place, because here 1/4 place was covered by them, and that's why they have picked up number of words from number of countries or from languages which are incorporated in modern English, late modern English. So this was the history of development of English language. Now that is something extra. Varieties of English and Englishes. English is not uh, one English, two varieties we are very much familiar: British English and American English. What does they say, what we are going to discuss here, that's from around 1600 word the English colonization of North America resulted in the creation of distinct American variety of English. What? From around 1600 century, the English colonization of North America, so that they were moving to North America and they were making their colonies. It was a time in 16th century, in the creation of distinct American variety of English. So when they settle, right, then English colonies were being made in North America. When they settle there, so then because of mother tongue influence of American English, so then they have created variety of English. So it was mix and match, we can say. Some English pronunciations and words, these are the words froze when they reached America. So some English pronunciations and words froze when they reached America. In some ways, English, American English is more like English of Shakespeare than modern British English is. That is again important. They say that? They say that in some ways, American English is more like the English of Shakespeare. Or we can say that American English is what? That is Shakespearean English. Then modern British English. So American English, there are two classes, two varieties: American English and modern British English, right? So that's American English is more like the English of Shakespeare, and modern British English is different. So on one hand, it was American English which were highly influenced from Shakespeare or Shakespearean English, and then on the other side, that is modern British English, right? Now, some expressions that British call Americanism, right? Americanism are in fact original British expressions that were preserved in colonies. British English expressions preserved in colonies, right, while lost for a time in Britain. For example, trash for rubbish. So that some of the words were lost, right? Original, what we say that Americanism are in fact original British expressions that were preserved in the colonies while lost for a time in Britain. So that British they preserved, but in Britain for some time it was lost. Example, trash for rubbish. So that's a trash is right now using instead of rubbish. Loan as a verb instead of lend, right? So loan as a verb instead of lend, right? Then fall for autumn, right? Fall, sorry, fall for autumn. So that was the another change we have seen. That's a false fall for autumn. Another example, frame up was re-imported into Britain. So these are the these words are used in Hollywood gangster movies. That's a Hollywood gangster movies. Okay. Now next, Spanish also had an influence on American English. So Spanish were that's American English. That's a Spanish also had an influence. So they also had influence on American English and subsequently British English, right? So that is British English with words like canyon, range, stampede, and vigilant being example of Spanish words. So these are the vigilant, stampede, range. These are the Spanish words that entered English through the settlement of American West. So as American, they were settled in American West, and then they adopted these Spanish words that, or what were they? For example, canyon, range, stampede, vigilant. French words through Louisiana. So when they settle here, they adopted French also. West African words through slave trade, and when slave trade they used to they bring Americans, Africans as a slave. So then they did business with them. So then also influenced American English, and so to an extent British English. Overall, in a nutshell, we say that how English has different flavors or variety, number of variety because of because of colonies or colonization, and because of adopting other words from Spanish, from American West, and French words, and this is the reason, right? Today, American English is particularly influential due to the USA's dominance of cinema, television, popular music, trade, and technology. So, see, I told you that directly or indirectly, everything influences us. Here, American English, what is that's a American English particularly influential. Why it is influential? Because of dominance of cinema, television, popular, and even mobile, right? Music, trade, reels, technology, including the internet. I told you, right? But there are many other varieties of English around the world, including, for example, Australian English, New Zealand English, Canadian English, South African English, Indian English. Even Indian English has number of variety. English is Indian English is South Indian English, North Indian English, Rajasthani English, Jaipurian English, number of English, right? So because of mother tongue influence, because of dominance of one language. So these are varieties of English language, right? So that is all. Now here I have added one picture, that is Germanic family of language, just for your information. So let us read together. These are the Icelandic and then Norwegian, Swedish. So actually Germanic tribe, right? They came from north, west and east, right? And then they settle here. So that's English, Flemish, German, Yiddish, East Gothic, and these are the Celtic, Italic, Balto-Slavic, Albanian, Greek, Anatolian, Armenian, Trocanian, Indo. These are the language. English is a member of Germanic family of language naturally. That's a member of Germanic family language, and then sorry. Germanic is a branch of Indo-European language family. That is just for your knowledge. Now, let us have recap. Okay, a brief chronology of English. So very soon we are going to discuss. That's a 55 BC. It was the time Roman invasion of Britain by Julius Caesar. History says that's a Roman invasion of Britain by Julius Caesar. This is the first. Then in 43, Roman invasion and occupation, beginning of Roman rule of Britain. Then Roman withdrawal from Britain complete. Then it was the time first Roman invasion of Britain. So Julius Caesar invaded Britain, right? Then Roman invasion and occupation, beginning of Roman rule in Britain. So they started ruling in Britain. Who? Roman. Then they completely withdrawal from Britain, and then settlement of Britain by Germanic invaders. Then we have read that Germanic invaders, they settle in the Britain begins. Uh, then earliest known Old English inscription. So inscriptions tell us about Old English, right? So that is there. Then William the Conqueror, we have read William the Conqueror, Duke of Normandy or modern France, invaded and conquered the England in 1600, right? So that's sorry. So then in 1600 they invaded and conquered England, and then earliest surviving manuscript, I told you that's manuscript of Middle English. Manuscript is handwritten Middle English, so that is also survived. So that is survived still, and that was from 1150, right? Then what happened in 1348? English replaces Latin as the language of instruction in most schools. So Latin was the language of instruction. It was the language of instruction in most of the schools. Then in 1362, English replaces French as the language of law. French became language of court language or language of law. English is used, so French was the court of law and English was used in parliament for the first time. So in the parliament, English was used first time. Then Geoffrey Chaucer came. So then in in 1388, Chaucer starts writing the Canterbury Tales, and then this was the reason it influenced Middle English. Then in 14th century, the Great Vowel Shift began. That's a shorter and shorter vowels they use. Then very important part is William Caxton. William Caxton establishes first English printing press. William Caxton, he invented printing press. Then in 1564, Shakespeare was born, and in 1604, first English dictionary was published named Table Alphabetical, double L. Please take care. Table Alphabetical. So it was the first dictionary which was published in 1604. First thing. Second thing, Shakespeare was born in 1564. Third thing, printing press was invented by William Caxton, right? And last, here we see that the first permanent English settlement in the New World, that is Jamestown, is established. So first permanent English settlement in the New World. So permanent English, because it was in trial and error phase. Now It was standardized. English was norms and rules were standardized. Spellings and grammars were standardized. And then 1607, that was the new Jamestown. It was established as permanent English establishment. And then 1616, Shakespeare died. Right? Shakespeare's first folio is published. So 1623, his first folio is published because he died, but because of printing press and all, first folio or first like set of books were published. And 1702, the first daily English language newspaper, very important, first daily English newspaper, the daily the daily Courant, the Daily Courant, is published in London. Very important. First English newspaper, the Daily Courant, is published in 1702. Now, 1755, Samuel Johnson published his dictionary, proper dictionary, very important. That is by Samuel Johnson. Now, 1776, Thomas Jefferson writes American Declaration of Independence. So, he has written in English American Declaration of Independence. Who? Thomas Jefferson. Then, Britain abandons the colonies in what is later to became the USA. So, then it was again big change. Britain abandons its colonies in what is later to become the USA. Now, Webster publishes American English Dictionary, Webster Dictionary in 1824, very famous. Then the British Broadcasting Corporation is founded. So that was made in 1922, British Broadcasting Corporation. Then Oxford English Dictionary came into in 1928. This is, and now this is modern time. So modern time, what we use, we conclusion is that language is three phases, 450 to 1100. Sorry, three phases of language, three phases of language, 450 to 1100, right? Then 1100 to 1100 to 1500, right? Then 1500 to till date, right? 1500 to 1800, that's a early modern English, right? And 1800 to present, that is late modern English. And this was old English, this was middle English, right? Then number of changes. First change here, Germanic. First change is, that's a Germanic tribes, three tribes, right? Second change is for middle English, William the Conqueror. Third is great vowel shift, right? And then for early and modern, the basic difference is vocabulary because of industrialization and technology. So this is the history of development of English. I would like to listen you, and your queries are always most welcome. Here I am winding up. Thank you so much. God bless you.